Welcome to the Brass Junkies, a podcast from the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network featuring interviews with the world's greatest brass players by two thoroughly average ones, Lance LaDuke and myself, Andrew Hitz. Today's episode features Phil Munds, principal horn of the Baltimore Symphony. He tells us all about his time in the Air Force Band with our very own Lance LaDuke that includes some choice road stories. He also tells us about winning the job with Baltimore, who his favorite orchestral composer is, and shares a very moving story about playing his mother's favorite piece with the Baltimore Symphony the very day after she passed away. He tells us all about it next. Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Brass Junkies. I am your host, Andrew Hitz, and I am joined by my fellow host, Lance LaDuke. How are you doing this morning, Lance?
I'm good, really good.
What?
Good.
So I asked him if he could get the microphone a little bit closer to his... What is wrong with you? What is wrong with me? Why did I go into business with this human? He's hanging his microphone off of his glasses right now and looks like an absolute jackal. So, okay, good stuff. This is off to an awesome start.
But
so,
is the audio okay?
It's okay. It's not as good as it was before, but it's okay. So it's just, it sounds fine to me. It's just the audience, and who really cares about them, anyways. So before we introduce our guest for this episode, which is already going so smashingly, I did want to ask you if you had a moment to go give us a rating in the iTunes store and maybe a sentence or two review. It would really help people find the podcast. A number of you have already done that. We really appreciate that. And the other thing is that we are now starting to get a handful of people who have become patrons of the show, which is really awesome. It's very, very, very much appreciated. If you go to Patreon, patreon.com/thebrassjunkies, then you can pledge to donate a certain amount per episode, which can be as little as $1, which would be $2 a month, which I know doesn't seem like a lot, but if you're getting a lot out of the program and wanted to help us with our hosting costs and with our production costs and equipment and all of that stuff. We've got a lot of expenses, and we're having a blast, and we're just happy that you're listening. But if you wanted to support the show in a small but very meaningful way, it would be very much appreciated. Okay, that's all the commercials. We are done with that part, and we are now, I don't know if Lance is, because he's dear friends with them, but I am honored and excited to introduce our guest, which is horn player extraordinaire Phil Munds. How are you, Phil?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
We're doing really well. I don't know about Lance, but I should say I'm doing really well.
That's okay. You and I will just talk.
Yeah, there you go. I know if Phil were to tell any one of the 10...
Sorry, I nodded off. Did I miss something? What happened?
As you're about to hear, Phil and Lance know each other very, very well, and if Phil were to share any of, say, his 10 favorite Lance stories, I believe any one of them would get us thrown out of the iTunes store. So we're gonna not do that, and I think that Lance enjoys teaching, so we're gonna do our best to keep him employable, which would be good. So, but it'd be fun to compare top tens. Actually, maybe we'll do that. We'll do that offline sometime. So, you've had quite a career already. I didn't mean to make that sound past tense, like you're retiring in a week or two. I don't think you are. Can you tell us what the career arc has been for you and how you got started and and where you are now?
Yeah, sure. Well, I like you said, I live in Baltimore right now, so I play principal horn in the Baltimore Symphony. Currently, I teach at University of Maryland, College Park, part-time with Greg Miller. So how I got there, how I got here, I grew up in California on the other coast, and I grew up in a musical family, and my mom was a choral director, and my dad was a tenor and also horn player. He actually started his musical career on the horn and was in the Navy band in 1955, I guess. It was very early, and when he was in the band, he became one of the first sea chanters. They formed the little chorus, Navy chorus, the sea chanters, and he was in the original chorus. And so the musical connection got my parents together, and then they had me. And they moved back to California. My mom is British. They met in Europe after my dad got out of the military. And so I grew up in a very musical home, and music, happening all over the place. My mom was a choral director at the church, and my dad was constantly singing all the time. And so when it came time for me, of course I was forced to do piano and, all the basics. But when it came time for me to choose an instrument, I guess I wanted to emulate my dad, and I chose the French horn. And so I went to school. I said I wanted to play the French horn, and they said, well, here's a trumpet. And so I took the trumpet home and played that terribly for a while. And after a couple of weeks, I said, this isn't going to do. I want to play a French horn. So they found a French horn, and I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the sound. It was obviously a challenge to make it sound good, which I liked, which I still like. I still like a challenge to make the horn sound good. And so, yeah, I was just kind of off from there. That was like the 5th grade, I guess. They bought me a Con 6D for Christmas. I remember that. And I guess the arc of my career is I've just never stopped playing. I've tried a few times to do other things, but it seems like the universe wants me to keep playing at this point anyway. So, yeah, we can go through some of the details if you want, but that's kind of the, how I got started anyway.
Well, Phil and I met each other. When did you join the Air Force Band?
I joined the Air Force Band in 1989. I went to school in San Francisco Conservatory, studied with Dave Crable, and I freelanced after school. I started playing assistant to Dave Crable in San Francisco my last year of college, and I did that kind of freelance thing, playing next to him for a couple of years, and then I freelanced in the Bay Area. And then I just saw an ad for a military band, and I thought, well, that's interesting, and the idea of not driving 200 miles a day were like appealing. So I took that audition not knowing really what I was getting into, and I thought, oh well, man, that would be fun. But I took the audition and won, and I got in 1989. So that was a long time ago. Yeah. When did you get in, Lance?
Yeah. 90. Yeah. So you only been there. I joined in the summers when I got to the band of 90.
Oh, okay. Oh, cool.
Is that right? No, 91. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I was way off. 91. So you'd been there 2 years before
91.
I got there. And so, Phil, I left the Air Force in 98. You left, if memory serves, you left a little before I did. When did you leave, and did you go right into Baltimore from there?
Yeah, well, I was in the band, and I saw this audition in Baltimore, and I thought, okay, well, that would be good for me to take an audition and see what happens, keep something to practice for. So I went and took the audition in Baltimore, and much to my surprise, I won it. And so that was 1997. So, I got out of the Air Force September 26th, 9:15 a.m. And I joined
August 2nd, 1998. About that same time of day.
Yeah, 9:15 at P20, right?
That's right.
Yeah, it's something you never forget. So then I had a few days, and I joined the Baltimore Symphony on October 1st. And so I came into Baltimore as assistant principal. I won that job. I didn't start as principal. So, I thought that I was just going to spend the rest of my life kind of playing whole notes for the principal horn and, doing some offbeats and filling in the section. It's kind of the bumper position, as they call it, and, I was happy. I was really thrilled to be doing that. And a couple of years into that job, the principal horn, the associate principal horn, had some surgery and some health problems and stuff like that. And so I started playing. I actually played associate principal on a tour to Europe. And our conductor at the time, Yuri Temirkanov, I guess liked my playing. And so he wanted to give me more opportunities to play principal. And so I guess over time, over the next few years, I just started playing more. And the current principal horn was on his, he was stepping down. And so I had to go through the kind of an audition process or a tenure process or whatever. But after, I don't even know what year it was, but eventually I was appointed principal horn by Yuri Temirkanov, which was a huge honor. So let's see, it's 2015, so they haven't asked me to stop yet. But it could happen any day. You never know.
That's pretty amazing. I mean, you're coming up on 20 years of having been in there. It's shocking to think about because we can't possibly.
Isn't it weird? I know. So guess what? And next week I turn the big 50, which is just amazing to me.
I forgot. See, yesterday happened? I turned 48.
Oh, awesome! Wow.
That's right. So happy birthday, 50. Man,
happy birthday, Lance.
I'm going to get you exactly what you got me.
Yeah.
which is this
a little like on Facebook.
Which is this? No, he got you this unpaid, interview slot on a crappy podcast.
That's right.
Hey, by the way, I am a podcast junkie, and just to be on a podcast is a huge thrill for me. I just want to say that.
Oh, so what have you thought of the other episodes of the Brass Junkies that you've heard? Anyway, so
there's more than this one.
Well,
so I thought it was the first.
Yeah, well.
Spoken like a former trumpet player.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Well, I was trying to think of are there safe to tell Air Force Band stories? There must be. I do remember one time we got to, in the spring, it was January through March, so not quite the spring, we do the guest artist series. And actually, I tell this story more often than you probably wish that I did, Phil, but we showed up to do a concert at DAR, and Phil had 2 left shoes. You got your... And so he had no alternative but to put on both left shoes and go out on stage. And you were sitting out on the edge, I think, at that point, weren't you? I can't even remember.
Right. Yeah.
It was right on the edge of the stage with 2 left shoes.
2 left feet. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man. Well, Phil and
I barely remember that. That's a good one. Thanks.
That was a good one. Yeah. Do you still get, for years, I would get like nightmares where I would show up at an Air Force gig and I'd have the wrong euphonium, or it could be the wrong horn or the wrong uniform parts, or just like something's going wrong. And I would just like wake up in a cold sweat, like just traumatic.
Yeah. Not too many of those, but I for years, and I still have dreams that I am back in basic training. Oh. For some reason, the country has called me back, and I have to go through basic again. And I'm in drum and bugle corps, and it's back there, and I'm in a bunk, and there's crazy people yelling at me, and I don't know what to do. And it's like, how did I get here?
Yeah, how did I get?
I mean, it's
5 years older than the next oldest guy.
Yeah.
The country has called you back because sometimes the only thing that can defend the homeland is 50-year-old musicians.
Yeah, right. Armed with a
The
horn.
drum and bugle corps was actually kind of a perk. They figured out which ones were musicians, especially who was going to DC, and so they would pull you aside and put you in the drum and bugle corps, which was, I don't know, a couple dozen players, something like that. And it got you out of doing KP, so you didn't have to do any of the kitchen stuff. And we got to go off base a couple times and play parades. And they actually sort of treated you more like a normal human when you got into the barracks to rehearse. And then as soon as you went back out, you were back to being less than nothing.
Yeah, it's bad when drum and bugle corps is a perk. Yeah. But I swear that saved me, because the original flight that I got into in basic was run by an ex-Marine training instructor. And this guy was just absolutely nuts. And we were going to have our first inspection, and I was nowhere near ready, and I was in for it, and I was sure I was going to get, kicked out and, raked over the coals. And 10 minutes, but literally 10 minutes before that first inspection that I would have failed, the guy walked in and said, "Do we have any musicians here, or we've got a drum and bugle corps?" And I volunteered, and I was out of there within 5 minutes and never had to go through that humiliation of the first inspection. So it totally saved my butt in basic to be in that group. And they took us, we did parades like out in the community, and, Saturday morning, local town parades, and they fed us. And it was, it ended up kind of being a neat experience, but, it was. The
rest of it.
It was my savior in basic for sure.
Did you do your basic training down in San Antonio like Lance did?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. We all went to San Antonio, where the cockroaches are like kitty cats.
I told this story on the Victor Barranco episode, I believe, but we rehearsed on that base. What's the name of the base?
Lackland Air Force Base?
Yeah, that's it. We rehearsed with one of the Army bands when we were playing who we were playing with at TBA, I think, Texas Bandmasters Association, and as we pulled up to the gate, like Lance got really tense, and I was like kind of like, what's going on? And then he said, "This is where I did basic training." I was like, "Whoa!" And then I was just staring at him for the next 2 hours. He looked really businesslike. He kept looking like behind him. I mean, he was like. He was convinced that somebody with a sack was going to come, and just like three guys were going to just take him in a van and not let him leave. It was amusing for me, because I'm a horrible person.
With just cause. I mean, they would have been within their rights. Remember, they scared you all the time with recycling. They could, at any point, we can recycle you back to day one.
We're going to recycle you. Yeah.
Oh, so they threatened to redo, like a restart, if you didn't iron right and stuff?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You had to go back to the beginning and do it all over again, and that was the fear you lived in for 7 weeks.
How much?
And it was a real fear. I'll tell this little story. Last night at basic training, our flight was, kind of a bunch of goofballs, and we thought we were home free. So the last night we didn't do anything right. We messed up the bathroom. We put shaving cream all over the walls, and we didn't clean anything. And, and that morning the TI came in, and he said, "You're all recycled. You're going back to the beginning," and, we were all just sitting there like, oh my God. I mean, it was the worst nightmare, the worst fear come true, and he went and talked to this officer came over, blah, blah, blah. They started talking. And, after a few minutes, he came back and he said, "Well, somebody got lucky." And, then we all got on the bus and got out of there with our tails between our legs. And,
wow.
We all felt very lucky. Yeah, it was intense. That was probably one of the most fearful moments I've ever had in my life. The thought of going through another 7 weeks.
How much easier would college teaching be if you could threaten any student with recycling?
Yeah, right.
That would be awesome.
That would be awesome,
right?
I am going to implement that right away. Yeah.
I'm typing an email to my dean as we speak, to both of them. Yeah, I would like the unilateral power to be able to make these students recycle. That would be great.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, and it has to be called recycling.
Yeah. Well, that's good for the environment. It's easy to sell then.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. Oh man, that was such a pain. Oh, it was so scary. Just that part of it.
Yeah, so I still have those
physically.
nightmares. I mean, it still haunts me.
Yeah. Wow. Well, we're better people for it. If that was only true.
Absolutely. Well, you are anyway.
Boy, I'd hate to see where it would have been.
Yeah.
So I had one more basic training story. You remember my dad, Phil?
Yeah.
So my dad was he made me look totally normal, and we had for whatever reason we were in the same boat where we ended up with, I think I had 5 TIs, drill instructors or training instructor. Just like one guy was getting ready to retire, another guy was going on leave, and so they kept rotating. And at one point we had this guy from the Bronx, and he was like a spark plug of a dude, and it was mail call, and so he says LaDuke, and he's got this envelope, and he turns it over, and it was from my dad, and my dad had written the following letters and numbers on the back of the envelope: OICU812. So this guy goes, LaDuke, what is this? OICU812. OICU812. What does that mean? OIC. He figures it out, right? And there's like 50 of us sitting there, and I'm so dead, He just stops, freezes, and he crumples the thing in his hand and chucks it at my head. And so then, I don't know, I got a chance to get, you could call home. So I called home whenever it was. And I swear my dad had been sitting by the phone 24/7.
Yeah.
As soon as he picks up and I go, hey, I got your letter. He was on the floor, he couldn't. It was apoplectic. It's thank you so much. It's really awesome gesture in basic training.
That's awesome. That is so great.
So you surely got to have a story or two about Lance from back in the day that is shareable for both the children in our audience and Lance's employers.
Yeah. So many of the stories are kind of a haze, and I see little pictures, but I don't get a timeline really. So I can kind of point out, little things that I remember. I remember what there was in Colorado Springs. There was a nightclub. There was a ride home. There was a hotel. Things were on fire. There was a damsel in distress.
That's true.
I believe there was a knife involved.
Oh, I couldn't have. Fortunately, the knife was neither you nor me.
Yeah, that's true. And there was a hot tub. I remember that.
There was a hot tub.
I thought you said hot dog, and I was like, what? How is this an integral part of the story? No.
Could have been.
Yeah,
could have been.
There could have been. I really don't know. No, I tell you what. Back in the tour days. I kind of went to I went to a music conservatory. With 300 people, and so. I never got the experience of, college life, frat life, and I feel like our Air Force band tours made up for all that.
We did a good job.
A fair amount of partying going on. Lance was just kind of, he was a little bit the ringleader. And, I always say this, I've never met anyone more funny than Lance LaDuke. I guess it's 2 stories I can tell. One thing that I don't know if you remember this, Lance. We used to organize these improv parties late at night, and we would rent out a ballroom or a big, or we used to sneak in, not rent out, right? We used to steal it.
Yeah, sneak in.
And we'd turn out all the lights, and we'd get about 20 people, and everybody would have their instruments or their voice or whatever, and we would just sit in a circle. And this is obviously after a fair amount of alcohol, and we would just play off of each other, and Lance would start something, and someone else would do something, and we would just go around the circle, and it ended up after 20 minutes of this huge symphony of sound of drunk people in the dark, coming from this huge ballroom.
In the dark.
And I'm sure it sounded like an insane asylum to anybody walking by the room. But that was your doing, Lance, and I will never forget that. That was awesome.
Hey, this is Lance. We'll get you right back to the interview in just a minute. I wanted to, first of all, thank you all for listening. You've been wonderful. We've got hundreds of you that are listening to every episode, and that's just great. It's very rewarding to Andrew and me. And we wanted to let you know that if you're interested in helping us cover the costs associated with recording and uploading and storing these podcasts, there's a quick and easy way for you to do that, and that's through a site called Patreon, Patreon. And at Patreon, if you sign up through that site, you can pick a dollar amount, $1, $3, $5, $10, however much you want, and every time we upload an episode, your account will be deducted for that amount, and you can set an upper limit per month or per year so that if we end up uploading additional content, that you won't be charged more than wherever you set that limit. You also will get access to some free downloads and behind the scenes things that Andrew and I are working on in preparing for future episodes. So if you're interested in helping out, we'd love to have you help you. Thank you very much for listening. Spread the word. Visit pedalnotemedia.com, click on the donate button, and we look forward to hearing from you soon. And now back to your regularly scheduled podcast, already in progress.
That's kind of an odd story with the lights on, but the fact that you were in the dark makes it go full-blown loony bin.
And then, I don't know, back in the day, I don't know if you remember Mystery Science Theater 2000, 3000, whatever.
2000, yeah.
So we all used to gather in a hotel room after a heavy night of partying, and we used to turn on a movie and turn the sound down, and Lance would do the commentary, via the...
do all the characters.
Do all the characters, all the voices, and I've never seen a room slayed more than that. I mean, people were, doubled over in laughter and on the floor screaming. It was, it was good times.
We did have some good times.
Yeah, you remember that?
That was really fun. Yeah, we did that a few times. I don't know. It's just that was really fun. Alcohol always makes me funnier. I mean, whether I'm drinking it or other people are, it's better if you do, then I get much funnier.
Yeah.
I remember you and I roomed together for a few years, right? And my favorite story from that period was we were, I don't know, just hanging out in the room, and you called down to get an iron and an ironing board, and you'd just gotten out of the shower. You had a towel on. I was still in bed, and I'm in my bed. And I'm reading a magazine, and the guy comes to the door. You're wearing a towel. He gives you the iron and the ironing board, and I said, "Come back to bed." And you looked at me like it was like a gunshot had gone off in the room, and you turned and looked at me. And the guy just throws the iron at you basically and shuts the door and runs away.
Yeah. And we're both basically naked at that moment. It just got real awkward.
Me.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, gosh. We better stop this.
Oh, no.
Oh, my heavens.
Yeah. It's all coming back to me.
Yeah, that's right. Some of it's even true.
Well, right. I mean, I think we became roommates because my former roommate kind of kicked me out, didn't he?
Yes, same here. I had a normal roommate, and you did too, and we were.
And I did too. Yeah. And so basically, they said, I've had enough of this. So we were kind of thrown together as the oddballs.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, great. I remember the thing that did. I came in one night after a timeout, and I came in, and of course we don't know what we're doing. So I think me and Lindsay went in the bathroom and just started, making tons of noise and everything. So my roommate at the time, obviously was awake. And so in the morning, he didn't say anything that night. And I think, I went to bed. A few hours later, he got up at 6 a.m. He turns the TV on full blast, turns the radio up full blast, opens the windows, so the sun's coming in. And he starts throwing my clothes all over the room. He's like, "Yeah, you want to wake up? You want to wake up? Here you go." So that was the end of that roommate relationship. And I think about the time you were looking for someone, so we were kind of thrown together.
The next logical step would have been for you to have started a full-time professional chamber ensemble with that gentleman, and then go on tour. Yeah,
yeah, right. Oh man,
how'd we survive? How'd we not get in trouble? That's really the amazing one.
Yeah. I always think about that. The stuff that we used to get away with. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. You remember that broken glass table somewhere in Kansas?
No, I believe you. I don't remember though.
Yeah, there was this broken glass table, and there was a singer party. The chorus had a party, and me and Lindsay went in, and we'd been partying a little bit, and I think I fell on the glass table and shattered it. and
diminutive.
Yeah, and then I just remember like fires in the room and all kinds of like furniture in the pool. You remember furniture in the pool?
I do remember furniture in the pool.
Yeah, it's a good thing that I don't understand how we're not in jail, and it's I guess the statute of limitations probably is up, so it's good. It's okay to talk about it now,
Seems like it.
But,
well, we'll find out.
We have a lot of law enforcement that listen.
Maybe we'll be roommates again.
You never know. You can have whichever book you want.
In the penitentiary.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right, we should try and turn this back into a brass podcast, maybe.
Oh, okay, right.
Oh my. Yeah.
So, what mouthpiece do you play on? No, I'm kidding. I don't care. What? I was actually wondering what taking an abrupt right turn here. You were talking about playing, assistant principal before you became principal. What do you look for in somebody playing assistant to you?
That's a good question.
Thanks, man.
Sure. It's a really important, very difficult thing. Every once in a while, my associate and I split programs, and like pops usually, and we'll assist each other. And when I do that, I'm constantly reminded how difficult it is to play assistant. Just to, because when you're playing principal, you kind of get into a flow and you get into a mindset, and you kind of have a no care attitude, just kind of going for it. But when you're assistant, you have to kind of jump in and just do things that seem unnatural, and it's a really unique skill. And you have to be almost more focused, because you have to sit there for long periods of time and just, come in when you need and when the principal needs it. So I've got right now, Ken Bell is a friend of mine, and he's playing assistant to me. The BSO has not had a assistant principal since I moved over, just because of budget cuts and, personnel and all that kind of stuff. So, so we kind of hired out. So again, I kind of get my choice. And, it's someone who can match what I'm doing on a moment's notice is probably the biggest skill. Someone who can track with me, with pitch and sound and all that kind of stuff. And it's almost a thankless job because I ask this person to make me sound good. and that's what it's all about. It's like they're doing the heavy lifting and some of the long notes and stuff, so I can try to sound good on some of the more exposed solos and stuff. So
I teach with Ken at Gettysburg College.
What's that?
I teach with Ken Bell at Gettysburg College.
Oh yeah,
Yep.
Well of course.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
Well, he's just fantastic, and he'll do anything I ask him to do, even though he doesn't want to do it most of the time. He'll just do it, and it's you have to be very flexible and basically just solid as a rock, and so I rely on him a lot. We're doing Alpine next week, and so he's going to get a workout, and I'm just going to sit there and play the solos and stuff, and he's and of course I get the solo bow, which is just not fair at all.
Who's your favorite composer of orchestral music to perform, and is that different from your favorite composer to listen to?
My favorite composer to perform right now at this point, I would have to say Strauss. So I'll tell this little story. And this is maybe, I've always loved to play Strauss, and, a lot of the assistant work that I did back in San Francisco, some of my earliest memories sitting next to Dave Crable were assisting him on Till Eulenspiegel and Alpine Symphony and Heldenleben. So, early on, I got that Strauss experience in a big orchestra with a great player. And so that always has stuck with me. And so recently, last April, my mom passed away, and her favorite music of all time was the Rosenkavalier. And we, she and I watched Rosenkavalier together, on DVD, and when the Met, digital broadcast came out, we went to see it, and so that music was, always very special to us, and she always said, "Oh, this is my favorite piece of all time." Well, the night she passed away, the next morning was the first rehearsal for De Rosenkavalier. We were playing the suite with the BSO, and I wasn't going to play. I'd always said, because my mom was ill, and we knew it was close. But that week, the fact that she passed away, that night, and then we were playing that week, I just decided that I had to play, So I went into rehearsal the next morning, red-eyed and, a mess. And, it was an amazing experience. I felt like I was kind of channeling my mother, and so that, I think, it was like a highlight, and performing Rosenkavalier that week, I think, was one of my highlights of my career, and probably the most meaningful and the most kind of out-of-body experience I've ever had, and it has a lot to do with my mother, but it also has a lot to do with the music. The music is just so beautiful and lush, and it feels good on the horn to play. I feel like Strauss really wrote well for the horn. It lies well, it feels good, unlike Shostakovich or something like that, or Ravel. It just, Strauss seems to be, like a really, it's a great horn writing in those pieces. So anyway, that was my story with that. So, and we're getting ready, next week to play Alpine Symphony. And so I'm kind of absorbing Strauss right now. And so that's probably my favorite composer to play right now. As far as listening, did you get all that?
Yeah, that was a
okay.
great story.
Yeah. So as far as listening, I'm very eclectic in my listening. I kind of find things along the way that I like to listen to. There isn't a composer that I like to listen to, more than any other. A lot of it has to do with my work. I listen to things that either my students are playing or that I'm getting ready to play, so it's really varied. For my listening pleasure, I usually listen to something completely different. I listen to Celtic music. I listen to, classic rock. I try to keep up with my kids, and listen to some of the stuff they're listening to. So, my pleasure listening is usually completely out of the orchestral realm, of course I have my Boston Brass CDs that I listen to all the time.
Of course.
Of course. Yeah.
Do you ever listen to, there was a rock band called Adam West. Do you ever listen to those guys?
Yeah, but they suck really bad. So, yeah, I do pull that out every once in a while and laugh. And
we should tell people what it is now that I've teased it.
Yeah, thanks for that. So Adam West was a DC rock band, and it had this lead singer, Jake Starr, which is, I believe, not his real name. And
shocker.
So Lance, I saw Jake at the Hun Festival in Baltimore last year. He was just walking the street. I was like, Jake Starr. He's like, that's not my name, but hi. But anyway, so Adam West was a rock band that I played bass guitar in back in 1991, I believe, or 92. Yeah, 92. And the only reason I did this is because my roommate was a guitar player, and he was in operations at the Air Force Band, and we became roommates, in a house, not on tour, and he was playing with this band, and they needed a bass player, and Ray was like, "Hey, why don't you play bass?" I was like, "Well, I don't play bass," and he said, "Well, here's one. Why don't you learn?" So I was like, "Well, that's cool. Well, I'll just be in a rock band now. Let's do that." And so I picked up the bass and practiced, and found out that my fingers were long enough to make the little strings go down, and so I got good enough to play in Adam West. Let's put it that way.
That's right. I remember going to see Adam West. In fact, I have to look. Up to a couple of years ago, I still had the Adam West. I had the full discography. I had your cassette.
Oh yeah,
Cassetteography.
Right. By Sam Dango Records.
Right.
Yeah. That was Oscar the Grouch and all those good old songs.
The hits. All right, so I think we should just keep segueing uncomfortably. So I'm going to take you back in the other direction now.
Cool.
So, how has your preparation for, say, the Alpine Symphony changed from when you were playing assistant before you were in the Air Force Band, or even, say, 15 years ago when you were still playing assistant or associate?
How's my preparation changed? Well, I've been doing this, I think, long enough now where I've played many of these pieces, so I don't have the the prep time that I used to need to really sit down and learn the part and get all the licks and everything. Basically this time I did listen to it actually because I really like it, and I kind of read through the part and worked out some of the the licks that I thought would be troublesome. But being 50 now, I have to take it easy. I can't run through Alpine Symphony 3 times a day like I maybe used to. So I have to play smarter. I have to prepare smarter.
And what's smarter mean? Can you unpack that? Like, what do you mean by smarter?
Smarter means less time on the face. Okay. Less jamming it into my face, trying to learn this stuff. A lot of it is, listening, watching the part, going through it in my head, knowing already what I can expect out of myself, and then working on the things that I have questions about, basically, not just, running through the part over and over and over again, because that, at this point is just too taxing for me. So I try to play smart. I try to, practice well. August this time is a little different because August is our time off. So I did take some time off of the horn, and I came back, kind of getting in shape and everything. So I started practicing Alpine maybe a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, oh wow, this this is hard stuff. And so I feel like I built up enough strength back to the point where I feel like I could get through it. And now I'm kind of tapering down a little bit, and, so that I don't go in tired. So I don't go in, so I'm fresh, so I feel like I can do some of the more sensitive things. This week, we're playing a preview concert, and then tonight, let's see, what time is it? Yeah, tonight. We're playing Rachmaninoff Piano Concerto with Long. I guess that's how you Lang or Long.
Both of them.
Yeah,
Long Lang
and Lang, and so it's not a very taxing week. So I kind of feel like I'm going into next week, pretty rested, but in shape enough to do the job. So again, I have Ken, so I should be good.
Do you feel like, I guess I feel, we're roughly the same age. I feel like I trust myself more. I know what stuff I need to work on and what stuff I can just sort of, I know it's just going to be there. Is that kind of what you mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I know what to expect from myself now, and, I've done it a few times. So, I've been there. I know what I can do. Each performance, each day, each, month is a little different. So there are always things that crop up that I have to kind of take care of. But yeah, I trust myself, to be able to sit down and do it. And, a lot of it is, once you feel like the piece, it's, you kind of have to just sit down and, accept what happens, trust yourself. And then, if something doesn't go quite well, or you're not feeling too great that week, it's all part of the job, and you just accept it and kind of move on, play through it, I guess. But I always try to, I guess the preparation part is I try to stack my deck in my favor. I try to give myself the best chance to sound good, now.
What does that entail? Beyond the stuff you've already described?
Well, it entails a lot. I mean, it entails warming up well. It entails knowing the piece, knowing the tricky spots, planning ahead, getting good sleep, not overloading my schedule too much to the point where, I'm going in frazzled. That's a big thing for me. I played a concert the other night, and, it was a long day. My wife's out of town, and so I'm kind of doing a lot, some extra stuff. You still there?
Yeah.
We're here.
Okay. Yeah, I heard a beep. Sorry. So I'm doing kind of a lot of extra stuff, and I went into the concert, I was like kind of scattered, so and I don't feel like I played as well as when I, have a couple hours kind of chill time, or, some reflecting time, some meditation time. I do all those things. I warm up, I meditate, I try to stay calm. I try to keep my playing on that level of not overtaxing, but also, being in shape, So there's a whole lot of things that go into it, I think, that, help me sound as good as I can in the moment, But the big thing for me is I realized that it's all about the moment. It's all about staying in that moment of just playing where you are at that moment. There's preparation, but it all comes down to that moment when you're playing. And So as relaxed as I can be, I work on trying to be as relaxed and calm and, focused in my head, so that, I can mentally be, kind of able to give it my best. So it's kind of a physical, mental, and spiritual thing all at once.
In terms of, that's a great answer. In terms of staying in the moment, a few years ago, when Boston Brass played at the Chicago Brass Festival, we had Marty Hackelman was subbing with us on the horn for the master class.
He's pretty good.
Yeah, he's decent. He's decent. He was so someone in the audience asked him about I don't remember exactly what the question was, but it was something about like looking ahead in the music kind of thing, in terms of being prepared for things, and
right.
and he had as most of his answers are always passionate and are frequently spicy. And he said, he said, yeah, some people will say that you always need to be looking ahead to be prepared for the hard parts. And he said, I'll say bullcrap is what he said. And he then said, and I of course won't get the letter right. But he said, you mean to tell me that you're, playing a G and H in Ein Heldenleben, and then you're looking at letter T coming up in like 15 minutes, which is some really incredibly hard part, and you mean to tell me that you're thinking about that because you're thinking about how great it's going to go? He said,
right.
Bullcrap. He said, you stay right in the moment and you play exactly what you are playing, and nothing more, nothing less, or else you're taking away from that moment and you're just preparing to fail later. So, and he was very strong about it, which sounds like it's kind of a similar thing with you, with just being present in life or on the stage or in the warm-up or any of the above.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, if I'm uptight about a certain solo or whatever, I'll always make sure that I focus very hard on what's before it, not on the solo, but where I am right before it, and how things are going right then. Not on the part that I, part of my mind thinks is more important. It's the part that's not so important that is really important to me. It's got like in Brahms 3, we have a, before that third movement solo, that little horn solo, there's a hold, there's a note, right before that solo starts. That's the note I focus on. That's where I put my full attention, because if I focus on that note, on the whole note, and I'm relaxed and sound good and and okay on that, then the solo is probably going to go okay, But if I'm all uptight about the solo and I'm not focusing on the whole note, guess what? I'm going to miss the whole note, and it's going to sound like crap, So yeah, it's all about being where you are in the moment, And a friend of mine a long time ago said, "It's one note at a time. Don't get ahead of yourself. Just one note at a time."
That's great.
All it is.
And how many times have
it's interesting? Well, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, it's interesting for me coming back from, a month off, which is a great thing, but it's also a very, very dangerous thing, because your mindset changes, because you start thinking about the future, you start thinking about the past, you start planning, and you kind of get out of that, living in the moment mentality, and, getting back to work. This is our first week back, and, being on stage, it's like, oh yeah, this is where I am, and it's this note, then this note, this phrase, then this phrase, and it's listening to other instruments, and it's all about being in the moment. And, those big ideas that we have, off stage, totally go away. They don't matter, and it's just all about playing, one note at a time. So anyway.
No, I was just going to say, and how many times have each of us had a student, who has played some difficult lick that goes up to a high note that nails the high note, and then they miss the next notes right after it. It's kind of the opposite of worrying about it, is celebrating that that the hard part is over, and then you fall off of it. So
right, yep. You see it all the time. Yep.
What sort of meditation are you doing, or do you do, and how long have you been doing that?
Well, that's a good question.
I asked because I've been doing it for about 3 weeks, 2 weeks, something like that, and it's having a huge impact in my day to day, and I just want to hear your experience with it.
Yeah. Well, I wake up in the morning, and the first thing I do is grab some coffee, and then I kind of get on my phone and check my bank account and see if I have enough money for the day, and then I do a little reading.
We're not paying you, right?
What? So yes, I did know that. So I do a little reading to get my brain going, and then I do some kind of meditation, whether it's just on my own, trying to focus on my own breathing, get myself kind of back in line. I feel like, when we're asleep, something happens, and things get a little, jumbled, and I have to refocus. I have to kind of recenter myself is probably a good word, in the morning. And, so what I do is, either I have a couple apps that I've used in the past, either just on my own. Well, there's Andrew Johnson. It's like kind of a meditation with Andrew Johnson. It's all over the internet. And he does these like little meditation, positivity kind of meditations that are really good, and I've used those. But I have been into the Don Green stuff. I know you guys are probably familiar with him.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he put together the art of centering, which is taken by from Aikido, and it's an ancient art, and he teaches centering in his book Fight, Fear, and Win, which is a great book. And he also put together probably, 9, 12 audio tracks that kind of is guided meditation. And it kind of guides you through the centering process, with the end result being that you can just do this on your own at any moment and any time. So I've kind of just started doing that again. The Don Green little MP3s are on my phone, and he starts with like a couple minutes, and then he kind of over you kind of go through the series of MP3s, and you end up with like a 45-second kind of centering process that you can do pretty easily. I find that really helpful throughout the day, especially on stage when I'm performing, just being able to have that ability to center quickly when things get a little, unfocused or unbalanced or I'm nervous, but I also find that the longer periods of meditation are very helpful, and I tend to do those on my own without any help. I just kind of focus on my breathing and again, back to the moment. I just try to stay in the moment, not thinking of the future, not thinking of the past, just kind of being right there. And those longer periods of meditation are very helpful to, kind of get me back to center.
And you say longer, you mean like 20 to 30 minutes or hour or 2 hour, or what do you mean?
No. Yeah, 5 hours of meditation every day. No, I think it's a difficult thing to do. I think if you can meditate 5 minutes well, I think that's incredible. And again, that's like not thinking.
Sure.
That's like, it's not thinking of the future. It's not thinking about, what your kids are, when your kids are coming down or what your dog's doing, or, it's just being in that moment. And I think that, the goal is to find longer periods of that. But if I can do it for 3 minutes, I'm happy. If I can get to that state where I feel calm and, where my mind is somewhat turned off, my conscious mind anyway. Then,
it sounds ridiculous that 3 minutes would make that big of a difference, but it's huge. It's transformative.
Anytime
it really is huge.
Yes. Anytime I even just get to school early enough to be able to sit in the parking lot for 3 minutes and meditate, it's incredible how I just wipe the slate clean of traffic, of whatever I'm dealing with that day, good, bad, whatever. You just kind of wipe the slate clean and are able to go in and be a better teacher. And when somebody helped me learn how to meditate, not that I hold myself up as an expert, but I have done it a lot. And he told me that that it's really hard at first because a healthy brain is an active brain. So it's not necessarily. Yeah. He didn't say it was unnatural, but it's not instinctive to shut your brain off. And so it feels weird at first. And he had me just breathing in slowly for 1 count and then out for 1, and then breathe in for 2 and out for 2. And he said as soon as I was thinking about something other than the count, he said just start over. And that's not good. It's not bad. Don't be frustrated. Don't be whatever. And sure enough, first time I tried it, it was really hard. And I went to him. I was like, you were completely correct. It was really hard. And he just kind of smiled. I was giving him credit. He's like, yeah, that's kind of like telling you that if you don't eat all day that you're going to be hungry. He's like, I didn't really provide you any amazing insight. Right. But I kept at it, and one app that I use is called Insight Timer, which is a really, really great app for meditating, which is, as it says, is a timer, and it keeps track of how much you meditate each day and which days you do. And it can just be a timer, but there's also like a few hundred guided meditations that are anywhere from 1 minute to 80 minutes long, and it's and if it's not free, it's close to free. I mean, it might be $1.99 or $2.99 or something, but it's a really great app, and that's improved my teaching and my playing and my parenting and all of that. Like, yeah, it's improved everything across the board. It's really powerful stuff.
Wow, that's great. What was that called again?
It's called Insight Timer.
Insight Timer. Mm-hmm. I'm going to download that today.
There you go.
Yep.
I listened to one of the podcasts I listen to is Tim Ferriss' podcast, the guy from the 4-Hour Work Week, 4-Hour Body, all that stuff. And each episode he's interviewing some top performer in some domain, and it varies widely. But one of the things that he has figured out is that one thing that almost all of them have in common is meditation, and he ends up talking about it with them. And it's, I would say, 8 out of 10 of his guests have meditation as a daily part of their daily routine. And he actually, there's a very funny quote, and I don't remember who he attributes it to somebody. I don't know who it was, but people think that they don't have time to meditate. And he said that whoever this teacher was said that if you don't have 5 minutes to meditate, you need 30.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
that's really funny. He did.
I think Gandhi said that, right? Like, if
is that right?
I'll probably get this wrong, but if you
he's still dead, recovered.
Yeah, if you don't have 10 minutes to meditate, then make sure you meditate for an hour every day.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
I can't believe that Gandhi copied Lance. That's kind of you'd think he'd come up with his own material.
Well, a lot of people do.
Yeah. Well, we are just about out of time here, but we did want to give you the opportunity, as we do with every guest, as I'm sure you're aware of the chop problems that our good friend Jens Lindemann is going through, and so we just didn't know if you had any words of encouragement or insight or advice that you might want to offer to Jens.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's a huge issue. It's one that I'm not an expert on, but it's very serious. And I think that, I heard, I did listen to one of your other podcasts, and so I looked on the website and
prayforjens.org
directed me to. Yeah. And, I really wanted to find out about his issues and his problems and what he was going through, because I think we all need to kind of stick together, support each other. And so all it said was pray for Jens, so
that's right.
I just want him to know that every day I've been praying for him, and that I've got a group of from the Baltimore Symphony brass section together, and we daily get together and pray for him. And,
does Marin join you as well?
He feels the support and the love from his friends in Baltimore, and this community has no geographical bounds, so I really hope that he feels our strength and our support, and I wish him the best in his recovery. I really do. And we'll be checking back to make sure that that everything is good with him. And if he ever needs to reach out, it's the hardest thing to do is reach out for help and ask for help.
So, for anyone who doesn't know about the origins of PrayForJens.org, you can go and download the episode of Just Lance and I from, it's like episode 4 or 5 or something like that, and we go into detail on our Pray for Jens campaign. So, that's incredible that the entire Baltimore Symphony brass section all gets together to pray for Jens.
Yeah.
Indeed, we are
daily,
daily. Even in August, you guys got together every day during your off month, just because.
Yeah, we group chatted and talked about it. It's really brought us together too. So.
There's a silver lining to even the worst chop problems.
That's right. If we want to find out more about you, Phil, do you have a website or social media presence, or if people wanted to reach out, what's the best way for people to do that or find you?
Oh, well, I'm on Facebook like everyone. I'm on Facebook, and I know I'm obviously Baltimore Symphony or bsomusic.org. I'm on there. I do have I don't know if I have that website anymore, actually. So forget it. I'm just on Facebook.
We could swoop in and steal it and sell it back to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, could you? That'd be awesome.
Well, I wanted to thank you for sharing a few of the Air Force Band stories, but I know it was hard to share any of them. But you did a good job of curating them on the fly, considering our demographics of the audience.
Yeah, sure. Well, it's so hard to remember,
Yeah, there's
that. Such a haze.
And that's not just because you're 50. Although that doesn't help.
True. Yeah.
All right. Well, Phil, thank you so much. This has really been a pleasure, and that is going to do it for another episode of the Brass Junkies. You've been listening to The Brass Junkies on the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network. If you would like to help support the podcast in order to make more episodes like this one possible, please visit pedalnotemedia.com/donate for more details. Also, be sure to check out our latest recording, The Brass Recording Project, at brassrecordingproject.com. The Brass Junkies is produced by Austin Boyer and Buddy Deschler of the Fredericksburg Brass Institute. Executive producers are Andrew Hitz and Lance LaDuke. This has been a presentation of the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network.